I'm Jim Ryan, ABC News. Has the American death penalty itself been sentenced to die? A look at the latest statistics suggests that it has. This year, 28 convicts were put to death in the states that still allow for capital punishment. That's 7 fewer than last year, and the lowest number of executions since 1991. And the number of new death sentences imposed in 2015 fell by 33% from the previous year. Dallas defense attorney Scott Palmer has watched the trend.
There's certainly definitely a shift towards getting away from that ultimate sentence of death, which is obviously it's been controversial for decades.
Despite the 1976 Supreme Court decision reinstating capital punishment, you could argue that Americans first felt pangs of conscience over the issue long before that. The 1953 execution of convicted spy Ethel Rosenberg in the New York electric chair went wrong when the first jolt failed to kill her.
She was given more electricity, which kind of a ghastly plume of smoke that rose from her head.
These days, of course, the job is done by lethal injection generally. I witnessed one such execution in 1997. The defendant appeared to simply fall asleep. But the case of Clayton Lockett in the Oklahoma death chamber last year may have signed a death sentence for the death sentence. Convicted of kidnapping, murder, and rape, the condemned was strapped to a table, the drugs injected into his body. But when Lockett appeared to moan and writhe in pain, prison director Robert Patton stepped in.
After conferring with the warden and unknown how much drugs had went into him, it was my decision at that time to stop the execution.
Lockett did eventually die that evening, but from a heart attack when his veins collapsed. He had been given an untested combination of drugs after the European suppliers of the regular execution chemicals refused to allow their use in killing people. Attorney Scott Palmer.
The shortages is causing a lot of litigation. Almost every death penalty case is being appealed to the Supreme Court on these issues of whether or not these drugs are suitable for the intent that they're being used.
Since the Lockett case, winning a death sentence seems to have gotten more difficult. James Holmes could have been put to death for killing 12 people in a Colorado movie theater. Instead,
for the conviction of murder in the first degree, I sentenced the defendant to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
In the end, says Dallas defense lawyer Scott Palmer, it might not be a question of ethics, but a question of money that dooms the death penalty.
Death penalty litigation is extremely expensive, and a lot of the counties that are looking at whether to go with a death penalty case have to make a fiscal and financial decision of whether they want to pursue what could be a very costly, upwards of $1 million just to try the case.
Observers expect the decades-long slide in the number of death penalty cases and actual executions to continue. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Dallas.